Hi, this is Country Carrie. Today I was making some pickles and I decided I would invite you along to help you learn more about pickling. So there is a lot of recipes out there for pickles, and a lot of it depends on your taste, what you prefer. If you're a sweet pickle person or a dill pickle person, or if your favorite are bread and butter or mixed vegetables, or anyway, so we all have our different preferences. But it's also fun to use some family recipes, which I have over the years. And what my mother-in-law used to always do is just use the garlic and some dill heads inside the jars loaded with the cucumbers and her water, vinegar, and salt brine. Now today I am actually going to try a new recipe and see what we think. This one has peppercorns in it. I put 8 peppercorns in it, and I put some dried peppers, which I actually used from my last year's garden. I dried some peppers, and with your seasonings, it's good to use them, you know, within 2 or 3 years, because that's when they're the most flavorful, and you don't want to wait too long. And then I also use some dill. Now I didn't have any dill heads, and so I used, you can use either 2 teaspoons of dill weed or 2 teaspoons of dill seed in place of that. So I just combined, and I used 2 teaspoons of dill weed and a teaspoon of dill seed, and I did have a little bit of dried dill that I added to it. So when you're doing recipes, a lot of times when you're canning, you have to be exact. One thing I've noticed with pickling, you do not need to be exact. What helps it is the acidity inside your brine. And so as you notice different recipes, they call for different seasonings. So I think that part's good. So what I did for my brine is I have 11 cups of vinegar. Now you need to make sure that your vinegar is has 5% acidity in it. That's important. So check on your vinegar. Another great thing to do with your vinegar is add it to your cold water bath to help the jars and the canner not get full of minerals deposits. So anyway, pickling in vinegar is a great thing. So in here I have 11 cups of vinegar, 12 cups of water. I have 1 cup of canning and pickling salt. Now this is different than your regular iodized salt. So what I usually do is keep my eyes open for this and make sure I have some down on the shelf before canning season comes. So what I did is I filled my jars with the seasonings I want. Next step is your cucumbers. Now, mine are garden cucumbers. They're ones that I've grown myself. But the best time to put them in your pickles, to make pickles out of them, is right after you pick them. Well, I did not have time, and they've been down in the root cellar for a couple days. And so what I did last night was I brought them in and cleaned them and put them in cold water and put them in my fridge. Now that's going to help with the crispness of it. One other thing that helps that I've been told is if you cut off the blossom end, that helps your pickles. Now I think it helps with 2 different reasons. I heard it helps with it being more crisp, but I'm sure it also helps by the time you cut the end off, you're opening up that cucumber to let the brine go in. So I think that is another reason. One thing I do is, before I used to throw away my ends, but if you have chickens, don't throw them in the garbage. Give them to your chickens. Make eggs out of them. Anyway, so then once you have your blossom end cut off, so this is my blossom end, and this is the stem end. Those are the ends that they're talking about. And if you grow your own cucumbers, you know, because you see the blossoms are still attached. Anyway, once I have my cucumbers in my jar, then I can add my solution. Let me set this out of the way. My brine. Now I use a funnel to help it stay in the right spot. Now your brine is supposed to be boiling and hot when you use it. Your cucumbers are cold. This is called a raw pack method. And then you add it to about 1 inch of the head space. So what they're talking about is if you have your jar, the head space is from the top of the jar down. So remember when I told you that from here to here is 1 inch. So if you have nothing else, you can use your own body measurements and say, okay, that's just below the rim right here. There we go. Okay, so then what I do next is I make sure and wipe off my lid and make sure it's free from any extra residue of anything so that the lid will stick. And then I get a lid. Now what I do with my lids is you don't have to boil them, but it's good to warm them up to soften that rubber around here. And I just put them on a warm and let them warm up. So then I'll stick this on. And then I'll put it, and I'll tighten it up. Now something that's kind of funny that I do. So this is a cur jar. So I make sure I use a cur lid. Now when I'm filling up my ball jar, I'll make sure I use a ball lid. And I don't know, I like to line them up so that they're just like this. And the reason I do that is because I often take, after I process everything, I'll look and I'll take my best looking jar to the fair. And just those little things can help. One other thing that you want to do is if you're planning on taking your pickles to the fair, is make sure the recipe that you use is an approved one, because they will ask you about what recipe you're using. And so, and besides that, it's best to use approved ones so that you know what you're making is safe. And so that's great. So then once I get all my jars done, then I'm going to put them in a cold water bath. Now, for those of you that don't know what one of those look like, I brought one in to show you. So this is a cold water bath. And what I do is I have my hot jars. I heat up my water. Now you always want your temperature from your water to your jar to be about the same. So when my water is starting to get warm but not boiling yet, I'll stick my jar into the rack. Now they have a rack in them and it holds 7. So you can do 14. I'm using my Camp Chef out in the garage like I did with my pressure canner. And so then I can do 14 at a time. So that makes it wonderful. Now for high altitudes, it says that if you're 1,000 to 3,000 feet, you need to add 5 minutes to the recipe, to the processing time in the recipe. If you're 3,000 to 6,000 feet, you need to add 10 minutes. So if your recipe says process for 10 minutes, that means you're going to process it for 20 minutes. 6,000 to 8,000 feet is 15 minutes, and 8,000 to 10,000 feet is 20 minutes. And so then, and you start counting once your water's boiling and Yeah, and your jars are submerged and your water's boiling. Now, when you put the water in to your cold water bath, make sure it is about an inch deeper than your jars, at least an inch, because you want all that heat to go around your whole jar to process your food safely. One other thing that you can do with making your pickles is you can also make homemade pickling spice. So you can buy pickling spice at the store that's already made, that's already mixed up, or you can make your own. Now, I've seen a recipe online before, and I have my favorite canning book. And it also tells you things that are in your homemade pickling spice. So I'll just tell you what ingredients you need to be watching for if you plan on making your own. Cinnamon sticks, bay leaves, mustard seeds, whole allspice, coriander seeds, whole black peppercorns, ground ginger, dill seeds, cardamom seeds, hot pepper flakes, and whole cloves. And so it is something that's doable. And then once you make it, you could need to use it up within about a year. Just like the rest of your spices, they're only good for so long. If you want to do a lot of canning, that might be the way to go to make your own pickling spice. If you're only going to do a batch or two, you might want to just pick up some that's already pre-made. That's all I have for pickles, regarding pickles. There is so many fun things that you can do with pickles. You can not only pickle cucumbers, but I've done carrots and garlic and green beans, and a friend of mine did asparagus. So yeah, and you can do fruit. You can do peach, watermelon rind. Anyway, there's all sorts of things that you could do in making pickles, and I hope you have fun doing it. Remember, country is caring and sharing, and I care about you and want you to venture out and make some pickles, and have a great day.